Sample means sample size for a particular standard deviation. Recall that when we're looking at the sampling distribution for sample means that the standard deviation of that distribution will be equal to the population standard deviation divided by the square root of the sample size. So we can control the size of the sampling distribution standard deviation by adjusting the sample size n. The bigger the sample size, the smaller the standard deviation of the sampling distribution will be. And remember, that makes sense because the bigger the sample size, the more accurate our samples will be. Okay? So suppose we take a sample size 45 from a population with a mu of 125 and a standard deviation of 32. Okay? I want to know what is the standard deviation of the sampling distribution. So I would use the formula in the upper right. And it would be the population standard deviation, 32, over the square root of the sample size, which is 45. So 32 divided by the square root of 45 gets me 4.8. Okay. Now, suppose you want to lower the standard deviation of the sampling distribution to be 1.6. What sample size would be needed to accomplish this goal? So instead of 4.8 as our standard deviation of the sampling distribution, I want it to be 1.6. So I'm going to replace the standard deviation with 1.6 and solve for n. So my equation is the standard deviation for a sampling distribution would be sigma over square root of n. Now I know what sigma is going to be. That is 32. And I'm wondering what sample size will get me a standard deviation of 1.6. Okay, so I plug the standard deviation I'm looking for in for the sampling distribution standard deviation, and now I'm going to solve for n. So my first move will be multiply both sides by the square root of n to get it in the numerator. Okay, and that cancels out with that. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 1.6. So I've got the square root of n is going to equal 32 divided by 1.6. So I'll take 32 divided by 1.6, and I get 20. And then I'm going to square both sides so I can find out what n is. So 20 squared will be 400. Okay, so in order to drop the standard deviation for a sampling distribution to 1.6, I would need a sample size of 400 in order to do that.